Well, welcome to another episode of TMX Presents, the podcast. My name is George Khalife, VP of US Capital Formation here at TMX Group for both Toronto Stock Exchange and TSX Venture. Really excited to be joined today by a good friend and the CEO, co-founder of one of our TSXV listed issuers, the Fresh Factory, Bill Besenhofer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I know we've kind of talked about this for a while here. Excited to sit down and have a chat.
Bill, I appreciate you. Well, the best part is we're both in Chicago and you're a Chicago-based
Yes.
company. So
Makes it a lot easier. Don't have to do this remotely.
Yeah, exactly. We're on site, part of the studio, a lot of paintings behind us. So it's kind of a neat behind the scenes that you're getting here, not just at the Fresh Factory, but a lot of the side passion projects too.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. The space that we have here down in Goose Island in Chicago, again, it's interesting as you see the paintings behind us. Art kind of formulates some of the things that we've done at the Fresh Factory ourselves. So, not too bad.
I would say it's a great background.
It is. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us, Bill. What I always love to do when starting these is, let the audience kind of get a chance to understand who Bill is outside of just the CEO and co-founder of Fresh Factory, and also what your upbringing was like growing up.
Sure.
I know a little bit of a secret. They used to play football, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, grew up in the Midwest, two parents, hardworking, was an only child, but spent most of my days and a lot of my days in athletics. Sports was a huge avenue for myself. And to your secret, I did play football. I was a kicker and punter. Was lucky enough to get an athletic scholarship, a full athletic scholarship to go to school in college, where, again, utilizing a lot of the skill sets as a young child, were having to manage, whether it be schoolwork and athletics on a consistent basis, is really some of the stuff that, things that I learned as we kind of move forward in life, getting into college, where I think that anybody that may have played an athletic sport in college, while it's fun and it's fantastic, it's work. It's a job. Like, you're constantly working at your craft while also getting your degree, so that you can prepare yourself for the future.
Do you feel like the intersection of you playing football, being an only child, is there some pattern there as to why you eventually decided to go in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was lucky enough to have, relatives in my life, my uncle actually, who was an entrepreneur. He dropped out of high school, funny enough, and decided to go into start a business. That business it grew to be pretty large in the video space, and so he's still doing it today. And I think some of the things that I learned from him and my own parents are, be creative. There's a lot of things that are out there in the world that you can go achieve, and if you put your mind to it, especially something in the entrepreneurship, that can happen. And so that kind of was the start of it, of again, thinking about working for yourself. Now, did that actually happen when I started and came out? Nope, that did not happen. I actually went to corporate America. Started out in corporate America. Did that for 5 years as a Lean Six Sigma black belt for a Fortune 10 company.
Sounds amazing, by the way. Every time someone tells me this, Lean Six Sigma black belt, I'm like, this.
Yeah, it is funny because a lot of times when I say it, some people are like thinking I'm going to karate chop them, but that literally has nothing to do with it. So, I was lucky enough that I had some very close friends who were entrepreneurs as well. One of them being my co-founder and partner here with the Fresh Factory, Nate Laurel. And Nate was a part of a group of friends that had started a proprietary trading firm here in Chicago. And doing some really fantastic things early on in the trading industry when it came to electronically trading. And so I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to take some of the skill sets that I had learned in corporate America and bring that to a brand new entrepreneurial trading company, to where from then on, for the last 20 or so years, it's been companies all over the place doing all sorts of different things and helping grow and build companies, and obviously now here at the Fresh Factory for over the last 7 years.
Well, the interesting part too from your story is that you spent you spent a good chunk of your career on the investment side, right?
Yes.
You mentioned you and Nate on
Yeah.
whether it was the trading firm,
Yep.
right? Whether it was Great Point Ventures,
Yep.
New Frontier Holdings,
Yep.
and you dabbled in different asset classes, real estate, private equity, venture.
Yep.
Now as a, operator of a company in the food and bev space, there's manufacturing, supply chain. I really wanted to ask, which side of the game do you like better? Investing, operating?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, I think every other day could be, it just depends on how manufacturing, because manufacturing definitely is not easy, especially within food,
Yeah.
but especially within fresh food. That makes it even more difficult. But I think that goes to like what the opportunity was and why we did what we did in starting this. But look, I think that when we went and had done the venture fund a few years back, it was a great experience and it was a great ride. It was absolutely fantastic. Invested in 32 some odd companies. But I think the one thing that we realized is, and myself included, was that we really like being operational, more hands-on with the companies. And again, having to be able to see some of the opportunities that were out there from the venture side allowed us the ability to kind of come to what we've now created, which is the Fresh Factory, and started it. And so, quite frankly, I like both of them because there is an avenue and an aspect of what we do with the Fresh Factory where we still utilize our venture hats as we look at customers that come to us for potential opportunities, and maybe there's opportunities for us where we even invest in them and we get to see the upside of that. And so there's definitely that, which we love to do, but then there's also getting our hands dirty and really getting into the operations, really building process, changing the way we do things, being continuously improvement day after day after day to allow us the ability to get to the success that we're looking for.
Were there pockets, and this is sort of your hat as Lean Six Sigma black belt on the operations side. You talk a lot about continuous improvement, right? Having processes in place. On the investment side, now you're talking about how many sort of different patterns you guys must have come across constantly. What was it about the concept and the idea of Fresh Factory and this concept of fresh, clean label, clean ingredient, plant-based, that drew you out of any other industry or vertical you both could have tackled?
Sure. I think, it's interesting, and quite frankly, I got to give credit to Nate, because I think a lot of the things that, and a lot of the businesses that he himself has even started, it tends to be way in advance of where the actual market itself even understands where it's going. Whether it's things that we've done in the energy space, whether it's stuff within the trading space. It really felt something similar in the food space. 10 years ago when we were looking at companies and things of that nature, we started to see a pattern of businesses that were out there in the food space where people didn't want to have food that was sitting in the middle of the store that could last for 2 years. Because kids, and as we started to learn more, we realized that, look, for us to have a better quality of life and a healthy living and maybe a longevity to our life, we needed to eat cleaner. We needed to have things be better. I use this example, quite frankly, all the time. I've got 2 young kids, a 5th grader and an 8th grader.
Yeah.
They're being brought up in a world, and it's not even necessarily myself. Like, granted, we definitely teach them, but through their friends, through school, through just what's going on within the United States and in the world, everything's about clean and healthy, better for you. We felt that same way back before things even happened, and which actually turned into where, when we started seeing that, we started doing some research, like, why are there not many people out there making that stuff? Like, why are there no avenues for these new brands and or larger companies who are multi-billion-dollar companies who are looking to get in that space because they see it decreasing in the other side of the space where it's stuff that's sitting on shelves forever? Why is there no one out there that's able to actually do that? That's kind of like where we started feeling there was an opportunity for us to really go be entrepreneurs again and say, we can go tackle something and really help, let's call it, revolutionize and or push this forward as it relates to better food, clean label, plant-based, things of that nature for us, that there really wasn't anyone else doing it. And so that for us felt like, well, that we can create, value, we can help move this forward, and people can honestly have honest food, healthy food, So.
Well, like, even personally, right? My experience is lot of the consumers now are much more educated.
Yep.
You know, the information is available online.
Yeah.
People are definitely more health conscious. They care about the health and wellness, especially post-COVID. This is an emerging trend, right? And it's all encompassing. And part of that too is just even a quick check. I'm realizing it myself, right? We want to get bread, for example. Well, recently all we do is get sourdough.
Right.
And we actually look at the like how many, is there 30 ingredients?
Yep.
Or is there really 5?
Exactly.
Of which that's really only needed to make sourdough bread.
Yep.
And so even that I've noticed personally in us and how we're shifting as consumers.
Yes. And then it's funny because that's exactly what we saw way back again 10 years ago. And again, it's going to take time because sometimes we get into patterns. I think COVID to some degree might have took a step back because look, the reality is that to eat healthy and eat clean, it's not cheap either. Like that's the reality. However, that's where we're trying to come in, where we've set up supply chains and things of that nature to try to get the product to a price point that everybody can afford the healthy, clean living and eating.
Speaking of which, we're gonna do an example. All right.
Sure.
I'm interested tomorrow. I love hummus.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, Bill.
Yeah.
It is never a lacking asset in my fridge. Okay. Tomorrow I wanna create a hummus dip. I have a really cool recipe. I'm pumped about it. You know, I have an idea of the design. We're getting rolling.
Yep.
I come to you and say, I need support. On the back end, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yep.
What does Fresh actually do?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like our bread and butter. That's where we started. You know, I'm pretty lucky to have some like great team members on our team. We've got 3 food scientists on staff. Really, it comes into our commercialization process. We can come in. It could be your grandma's recipe. And we can sit down with you and map out the entire supply chain, basically from farm all the way to shelf, taking you through the entire process, teaching you what needs to happen, what you need to do, regards to our facility, what type of packaging you might need. We can pick, pack, and ship it for you. Really creating the product that you need that goes from your kitchen to a commercialized product that can be on shelf in 13,000 stores throughout the United States and or even in Canada.
I'm curious, from all the different lines that you've seen, right? And I know there's different categories, right?
Yep.
Juice or pressed juice, bars, dips, salad dressings. There's so many different avenues you can take.
Yep.
What examples to you have been the most interesting from real sort of cases that you've actually worked on?
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, could even start with even our first case, quite frankly. The first customer we had, Whole Foods.
Which, by the way, that's a milestone.
It is.
As a first.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we were pretty lucky to have some relationships from our investment days, and we got to know some of the people that the president of the Midwest region at the time, 8 years ago, and we had an opportunity where I think more and more people were worried about quality. The quality that they were tasting and making sure that it was, making sure that we're producing the product properly, gloves, sanitation, like GMPs, things of that nature that are actually really important. We were lucky enough that as the time we were about to start doing products, Whole Foods needed somebody to come in and actually start making all of their cold pressed juice within the Midwest region, as opposed to making it in every store. So they were trying to press juice in every store, which was at the time, maybe 40 stores in the Midwest region, and every store was trying to press their own juice. Well, there's sanitary issues that come with that, with cleaning. There's also longevity, meaning the length of time that it can actually be on the shelf, because if you're just pressing it, you probably got about 6-7 days. We had a chance that we could bring some technology as well as press the juice ourselves and create a larger scale and create new SKUs specifically for a private label for Whole Foods. And we started off, the first run, I'm not going to forget, I was on the line myself because it's in a refrigerated room, a jacket, orange juice all over me. But it was a pretty awesome moment though. But like, for example, that was just our first one. And then from there, it's kind of like old hat, so to speak. It kind of happens quite frequently now where we have the opportunity to, meet with a lot of people and a lot of different companies and help create and build these products and things of that nature that most people probably don't even realize that we're doing.
Well, speaking of helping too, I know this is more of an ancillary feature to what you provide. It's not at the center,
Yeah.
But something interesting that you guys did is sort of bridge your focus and your experience as investors previously,
Yeah.
and the connections, the network resources you have, to what you're seeing on the front lines at Fresh,
Yeah.
and trying to help these up and coming products and brands, because you know firsthand how difficult it is.
100%. Yeah, it's definitely difficult. You know, we own a couple brands ourselves, and I think just in general through COVID, I think brands, small brands, they've taken a hit a little bit. I think everyone would attest to that and understand that. But I think some of the things that we've been able to do, while we're very, very selective of the people that were to come into this type of a program, our Fresh Start program, we do take and look at, depending upon the product itself, we will potentially do some investment in them. We look at it and actually run it similar to how we would an investment through our VC days. So it goes through the same process. It's pretty vigorous for us. But if we've got conviction and we find that we've got the right entrepreneur with the right product and the right thesis within that clean space, I mean, we'll wholeheartedly go do what we can, whether it be from a financing perspective or potentially as we look at something with some deals of the cost structure or whatnot, or introductions. We're willing to sacrifice and do some of that for the upside of that brand, if that's truly the brand that we believe in.
What's most exciting for you now, based on all that you've done already? And I know we're sort of, every time I speak to entrepreneurs, it's always like we're 1% there. We're like
Yeah.
we're not even scratching.
Well, I was going to say, I'm like, we got a long way to go still.
But there's a lot of building that's been done.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like just in general, whether it's industry, vertical, what you're seeing in the market, what is the most exciting?
Quite frankly, from like me seeing where we came from, I think the breadth of customers that we've been able to deal with and grow with. It's really exciting to be able to grow with some of the largest like publicly traded companies in the world, and actually help develop products that you can see that can go into, whether it's on shelf or direct to the consumer or at a quick service restaurant. For me to see that in itself, stepping back, amazing. What's even more amazing though is the people we have in our workforce. It's building new processes, because as you start to get through steps of growth, there are things that you need to bring along your people with you, as well as sometimes new processes. And I think one of the things I had mentioned even earlier is continuous improvement. So we're always looking to improve every day, because we can always get better every day. And that's something that we look at and work at on a daily basis. So funny enough, like being a Lean Six Sigma black belt and looking over process, we need process. And again, we have some flexibility in what we've built because of the different offerings that we have. And you'd mentioned it through salad dressings, dips, hummuses, refrigerated bars. It's the innovation of being able to create and see someone's dream and or product get to life in a pretty quick time, where, again, when we didn't have this company, there weren't many people that were able to get things to market as quickly as we were able to get it to them. And to me, to see that and to see us grow, I mean, it's exciting. It's really exciting.
It is. And I absolutely love the fact that you can walk into a grocery store and just point to something and be like, that's a...
It is.
Even if it's in the back end, but and even through our relationship, for the past couple of years, like I get pumped. I'm walking, I'm like, I know who did this.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that you have the physical relic of something you've created.
Yeah, 100%. And look, there's a lot of people out there that do something similar in every avenue, whether it be furniture or any industry. Sure. But I think for us, being able to create this healthy food that's better for you. Like, it's not just about, obviously making, money and numbers, etc. It truly is like helping people become better and healthier, like to live a better life, a better for you life. So, it's twofold for us. And I think, I speak for myself, but I can attest that, Nate or anybody else in our leadership team, all the way down to anybody that's on our lines, I think everybody kind of feels the exact same way, which is, why we have such a great group that we do.
Well, it seems that the road is bright, and as we kind of look at the sort of growth paths that you've taken, one that's obviously interesting for me to bring up and talk about is the decision to go public.
Yeah.
As a company that was already living in the Canadian capital markets for, I believe it was 2 years.
Yeah.
You recently listed on the TSX Venture, and this was towards the end of 2023 under the ticker TSXV, FRSH. So we welcomed you, and now we can call TSXV home.
Yep.
But just curious, and for folks listening, imagine someone who's the CEO of a U.S. company.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the management team came from the investment side.
Yep.
You could have taken different growth avenues. You could have taken different capital raising paths.
Yep.
What was it about the opportunity that you found within Canadian capital markets that made that route make sense for you at that time?
Sure. Yeah, I think again, we were lucky enough to have some colleagues that had some businesses, some being in the cannabis space, some being within the plant-based space, where the Canadian markets were very welcoming and open to it. Not that the U.S. markets weren't, it was different. There was an opportunity that we felt that their Canadian market shareholders and investors were open to a healthy, better for you, clean label, plant-based. And I think one of the things we felt like when we went to Canada was that we'd be able to get that investor, and then we'd also, again, not only just getting that investor, we'd have the ability to get access to capital quicker, through venture, etc. The process for raising capital and sometimes takes time. Like that's not something that happens overnight. And so some of the things that we were looking at even at the time was purchasing some other businesses. And so getting access to capital quicker was one of the real big reasons where we felt like, okay, we can get access to capital, but then we can get the support because we know that the Canadian investors believe and are maybe a little bit more at the forefront of some of these newer movements, so to speak. Again, the cannabis, endo, plant-based, better for you, healthy, clean label. And so we decided to do that, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is very true. Like I often say, public investors in Canada are, one of their strengths is also deploying risk capital in very thematic or nascent industries.
Yep.
Ones that are, they haven't been around for a very
Up
long
and coming.
time.
Yeah.
Up and coming, they're emerging. And we see this now, you mentioned too already, plant-based and cannabis.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen it in blockchain and crypto. We've seen it in gaming and sports betting.
Yep.
We've seen it recently in space tech and AI.
Yeah.
And they're kind of hungry for these new ideas.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice that there is at least a space where the reception is quite high for trying and testing new ideas.
Exactly. I think, and you hit it right on the head. I mean, that's exactly why we felt like the Canadian markets were the great first start for us, first step.
Mm. What are, as a founder, right, as an operator, as an investor, what have been some of the ups and downs now that you've been listed?
Yeah.
You kind of have some grease on your elbows. You kind of know what it's like.
Quite honestly, I mean, I think that just to be blunt, I mean, there's a cost to going public, right? So it's not free. Very different from the private side where you don't necessarily have to worry all about that. And, I think what to say, what not to say, that's been obviously a learning curve for myself and the team in general and what we can communicate. But, I think the downside, I mean, quite frankly, is the market in itself hasn't been all that great in the last couple of years. I think you can attest to that and have seen where it's been a rough market, right? I mean, inflation hits, things of that nature. I think some of the probably other companies that are similar to us may have gotten hurt quite a bit. We've been very lucky. We've been able to kind of work our magic and do the things that we needed to do, put our heads down, focused on our business, and really started to produce real results for a real company. So we've been very lucky in that regard. So, but from an upside, I mean, I think we've been able to, again, access to talking to a bunch of different investors, whether it be institutional, even in some of the smaller cap investors. So downside, again, I'd say probably more cost, regulation, which is a little bit different than what we've had to deal with in the past. But it hasn't been all that difficult, quite frankly. So so we've been okay.
Yeah, well, there's also an opportunity cost. I mean, every sort of route you take will have ups and downs, challenges, right?
Yes.
I always say there's no sunshine and rainbows in every avenue you're going to take.
Yeah.
No, but it's very true. And part of that is navigating markets.
Yep.
Some that are choppy and some that are a bit smoother.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know we talk about is exposure, right?
Yeah.
That sort of visibility. Has that helped, especially having or being closer to the CPG space?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think like as a private company, a lot of the times you've got to go out and create that. I think you still need to do that on the public side, but you do have people that can support you. A TSX V, a TSX employee. I mean, there are people out there that are helping us get our names out there, even in our investor relations group as well, to get us out in front of people. Because I think, quite frankly, for our company in itself, it's really just making sure people understand who we are and what we do. And then you'll see what we are and what we do, and that we are real. We have real assets, have real lines of manufacturing, have great business opportunities moving forward. And, we're getting to the point where we're doing well financially too. So like, it's actually a real investment and something you can believe in as an investor.
Well, I'd love to end on this sort of over-encompassing note, which is, based on your rich experience, right? What advice do you have for emerging founders? Could be investors too, but
yeah, I would say for founders, don't give up, right? It's going to be ups and downs, right? I think if you can try to keep even keel, which isn't always the easiest, but to keep plugging away, never give up, have a vision, go with that vision, put a plan in place, follow your processes, and I think you can be very successful.
I appreciate you, Bill.
Thank
you, sir.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for
really
doing
appreciate it.
this,
This is great.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of TMX Presents the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode with Bill Besenhofer from the Fresh Factory. And for more episodes, check out our channel.